Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. What happens when the First Lady of France gently pushes the president on the airport runway? It's not the plot of a new Netflix drama. It's real, and it just happened in Vietnam. French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte had just landed in Hanoi. The air was thick with the humidity of Southeast Asia, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every movement feel a little heavier. The runway stretched out before them, a strip of concrete shimmering under the late morning sun, flanked by a delegation of Vietnamese officials in crisp suits and a small army of journalists, their cameras poised like hawks waiting for the perfect shot. Macron stepped off the plane first, his suit impeccable, his posture as composed as ever. Brigitte followed, elegant in a tailored dress, her blonde hair swept back in a chignon that spoke of effortless French sophistication. The couple descended the stairs, waving briefly to the crowd, their smiles diplomatic but warm. But then something unexpected happened. As they reached the tarmac, Brigitte turned to her husband, her expression unreadable. The cameras were rolling, capturing every second of what should have been a routine diplomatic arrival. Diplomats stood at attention, their faces a mixture of curiosity and formality. And suddenly, Brigitte placed both hands on Emmanuel's face, her fingers framing his cheeks for a fleeting moment, before giving him a little push. Not a violent shove, not an angry gesture, but a gentle nudge, the kind you might give a distracted child to get their attention. The motion was subtle, but it was enough. Enough to send a ripple through the crowd, enough to make the journalists' cameras click faster, enough to set the internet ablaze. Yes, a push. Not hard, not angry, just enough. The moment was over in a heartbeat, but its impact was seismic. By the time the Macrons had made their way to the awaiting motorcade, the footage was already circulating online, a 10-second clip that would soon be dissected, memed, and debated across the globe. TikTok exploded with edits of the moment, some set to dramatic violin music, others overlaid with comedic sound effects, a cartoonish bowing as Emmanuel's head tilted back slightly from the push. Twitter, or X as it's now called, lit up with hashtags Macron slap, Brigitte push, Hanoi incident. In France, the moment trended in 2 languages, with French users speculating in rapid-fire tweets, while international audiences chimed in with their own interpretations. Some called it a slap heard round the world, though that was a clear exaggeration. There was no slap, just a nudge. But the internet has never been known for its restraint. What was Brigitte thinking in that moment? Was she annoyed? The couple had just endured a long flight, and anyone who's traveled internationally knows the toll it can take. The jet lag, the dehydration, the sheer exhaustion of being on for hours. Perhaps Emmanuel had said something to irritate her, a quip that didn't land, or a comment about the itinerary that rubbed her the wrong way. Or maybe it was a signal, a private message between husband and wife that only they could understand. Some speculated it was a snap-out-of-it gesture, a way for Brigitte to pull Emmanuel out of his presidential persona and back into the present moment. After all, the stakes in Hanoi were high. Macron's visit was part of a broader effort to strengthen ties between France and Vietnam, a diplomatic mission that required focus and finesse. Maybe Brigitte sensed her husband was distracted, his mind already racing ahead to the meetings and speeches that awaited him, and she wanted to bring him back to earth. The Élysée Palace was quick to respond, as they always are when the Macrons make headlines for anything other than policy. Their statement was measured, almost exasperated, as if they couldn't believe they had to address something so trivial. "Calm down, everyone," they seemed to say, though their words were more formal. They described the gesture as a loving moment, a spontaneous display of affection between a husband and wife who have spent nearly 3 decades together. It was nothing, they insisted, a non-event that had been blown out of proportion by a media hungry for drama. But the internet didn't buy it. What the Élysée called a nothing burger quickly turned into a 5-course media meal, with pundits on French television debating the meaning of the push and international outlets running clickbait headlines like, "Did Brigitte Macron just embarrass the president in public?" President Macron himself weighed in later that day during a press conference alongside his Vietnamese counterpart. When a journalist inevitably asked about the incident, Macron's response was quintessentially French, dramatic, philosophical, and just a touch sarcastic. He called the global reaction a geoplanetary catastrophe, his tone dripping with irony. The phrase was vintage Macron, a man known for his rhetorical flourishes and his ability to turn even the most mundane moment into a grand pronouncement. He didn't seem particularly bothered by the incident, though. If anything, he appeared amused, perhaps even a little proud that his marriage could still generate such fascination. After all, he's French. He's dramatic. He gets it. Let's not forget the context of this moment. The Macrons are no ordinary couple. Their relationship has been a subject of public fascination since Emmanuel first burst onto the political scene. Brigitte was his high school drama teacher, a fact that has been endlessly dissected by the press. She's 24 years older than him, another detail that has fueled both criticism and admiration over the years. When they first met, Emmanuel was a teenager, a precocious student with a flair for literature and a rebellious streak. Brigitte was married with 3 children, a respected educator in her community. Their romance, which began in earnest after Emmanuel pursued her relentlessly, defied societal norms and sparked controversy. There were whispers of scandal, accusations of impropriety, and plenty of raised eyebrows, even in a country as progressive as France. But the Macrons weathered it all. They married in 2007 when Emmanuel was 29 and Brigitte was 54, and since then they've become one of the most talked about couples in modern politics. Through it all, they've remained close, affectionate, and visibly connected. At public events, they're often seen holding hands or exchanging small, intimate gestures, a touch on the arm, a shared smile, a whispered word. Their dynamic is one of partnership, with Brigitte playing a more active role in Emmanuel's political life than many first ladies before her. She's not just a supportive spouse, she's a confidant, an advisor, a grounding force. During Emmanuel's 2017 campaign, she was a constant presence, helping to shape his image and strategy. When he won, she became a fixture at the Élysée, hosting events, championing causes like education, and navigating the scrutiny that comes with being the partner of a world leader. Their age difference, once a lightning rod for criticism, has largely faded into the background, replaced by a narrative of mutual respect and unwavering commitment. So maybe the push on the Hanoi runway wasn't a slap at all. Maybe it wasn't even a scolding. Maybe it was just Brigitte being, well, Brigitte. Keeping him grounded as she always has. Keeping him focused as he prepares for a high-stakes diplomatic visit, reminding him in her own way who's really in charge. Because let's be honest, even presidents need a little push sometimes. The role of a head of state is one of immense pressure, a constant balancing act between domestic demands and international expectations. Macron, for all his charisma and intellect, is human. He gets tired, he gets distracted, he makes mistakes. And Brigitte, who has known him since he was a teenager, who has seen him at his most vulnerable and his most triumphant, knows exactly how to bring him back to center. The internet, of course, had a field day with the moment. Beyond the TikToks and tweets, there were think pieces galore, each one offering a different interpretation of the push. Some saw it as a feminist statement, a subtle assertion of Brigitte's power in a relationship often overshadowed by Emmanuel's title. Others viewed it through a psychoanalytic lens, speculating about the dynamics of a marriage where the wife is older and once held authority over her husband as his teacher. A few conspiracy theorists even suggested it was a coded message, part of some elaborate political strategy that the public wasn't privy to. But most people just found it funny, a rare, candid moment in the otherwise polished world of political optics. In the days that followed, the story took on a life of its own. French late-night shows ran skits about the incident, with comedians impersonating Brigitte and Emmanuel in exaggerated reenactments. One popular sketch had Brigitte pushing Emmanuel so hard he fell into a pile of croissants, a nod to the couple's Frenchness that had audiences in stitches. Meanwhile, Vietnamese social media users chimed in with their own takes, many of them charmed by the Macron's dynamic. She keeps him in line, one user wrote on a local forum alongside a heart eyes emoji. "I wish my wife was that bold," another commented. The moment even inspired a wave of fan art, with illustrators depicting Brigitte and Emmanuel in various playful scenarios. Brigitte pushing Emmanuel into a pool, Brigitte pushing Emmanuel off a bicycle, Brigitte pushing Emmanuel into a pile of paperwork labeled French pension reform. But beyond the memes and the headlines, there was something undeniably human about the moment. For all the grandeur of their positions, President and First Lady, global figures on a world stage, the Macrons are still a married couple. They bicker, they tease, they support each other in ways that don't always fit the script. The push on the Hanoi runway was a reminder of that humanity, a fleeting glimpse into a relationship that, despite its unconventional beginnings, has endured the scrutiny of the public eye. It was a moment magnified by cameras, multiplied by the internet, but at its core, it was just a moment. A brief, unscripted interaction between two people who have built a life together against all odds. In the end, the Hanoi push didn't change the course of Macron's visit. He went on to meet with Vietnamese leaders, sign agreements, and deliver speeches about climate cooperation and economic partnerships. Brigitte was by his side, as she always is, her presence a quiet reassurance amid the whirlwind of diplomacy. The world moved on to the next viral moment, the next hashtag, the next scandal. But for those who watched the clip, who saw the way Brigitte's hands lingered on Emmanuel's face for just a second before the push, one thing was clear: their love story is still going strong, still surprising us, and still, unmistakably, Macron.